Welcome to Frank and Upfront. I am your host, Mr. Franklin. A very special welcome to all of you who are joining me here on this podcast. I invite you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified of weekly uploads. Today's topic: the age of consent versus the age of majority. Now, we live in a very remedial society. People are often dumbed down. They're dumbed down the way that they're being spoken to by authority, by the media, by their religious leaders, by the supervisors at their jobs even. This is especially true in Western society, and especially true in the United States of America. People are, it isn't that they're not even capable, it's that they're not being allowed to live out their full maximum potential because, or to conduct themselves or to act at a level that is befitting of someone in their age group. And these are big folks, grown folks, by the way, grown 30, 40, 50-year-old, 50, 60-year-old grown-ass folks. It isn't entirely their fault. They are a product of their upbringing. And it isn't that they are not capable of conducting themselves on the level of someone within their age group. It's that they are being spoken to at a remedial first grade dumbed down level. Even the way instruction manuals are written are written to as if they're explaining it to like a 6-year-old. It's quite insulting, but I see why it has to be necessary. But and this is not by accident either. This is by design. There is an agenda here to infantilize people. And as a matter of fact, the method that is being employed here in these scenarios is one of infantilization. These people are being infantilized. They are being conditioned to behave in a childlike manner so they're easier to control, and they don't even realize that, wow, they're getting bigger and bigger. They're getting older and older and older. It's almost like tying a baby elephant to a chair. And then the elephant gets big, really big, and the elephant could, at that point, basically use the chair like a slingshot. But because he has been trained in his mind that the chair is too heavy for him to move, he just sits there very docile, very submissive, very obedient, like a good little slave. Do as he's told. When he could, if he knew his true strength, the elephant could use the chair as a slingshot against his very captors. The same thing can be applied as far as human cattle is concerned within the confines of this Babylon system. people go through the motion of going through their regular day. A typical day for them is slaving away at some job that doesn't appreciate them, putting in extra hours before the day starts and after the night ends, working for clout and the Employee of the Month trophy, and all that, and ultimately ruining their health in the process. When if they knew their true worth, they wouldn't put up with that. They wouldn't put up with working those long hours at a very unappreciative job, slaving away for a blasted bunch of ingrates. They wouldn't do that. They'd get up and go forth in the world and do whatever it takes to actually start their own business, so they could only work a few hours a day, so they could have more recreational time to spend doing what they really love and with whom they really love and prefer spending time with. And all of that is as a result of the agenda to cripple their willpower and their belief in self by talking down to them, using remedial jargons, infantilizing them. Even in certain black families, even when the kids are fully grown, the parents want to talk down to them and belittle them and infantilize them. Even after they're fully grown, even after they're fully past the age of majority and they're now a grown-up and they probably even have kids of their own, the parents still want to be in charge and treat them like children, or like subjects rather. And try and control their grown-up kids. And if you don't put them in their place, they will find ways to keep getting away with it. Well, if you do put them in their place, they'll find ways. Try and find alternative ways to get away with it. And if you don't put them in their place and you let them get away with it, they'll just walk all over you. If you and them are arguing and you're getting too right, in their minds, oh, you're getting disrespectful, you're getting too loud, you're getting too ripe. No, you're not getting too disrespectful. You're getting too light. You're getting too, the only thing you're getting too much of is right. You're getting too right and they can't handle that, so they're gonna clap back with, oh, you're getting disrespectful now, you're getting too ripe, oh, you smelling yourself, yeah, I'm grown. Oh, you think you're grown, you think you're better than the rest of us, huh? See, sometimes there's no solution, you know. Some of these people don't even want help. Sometimes the only solution is to go strict, complete, no contact. Some of these people truly do not want help. But And funny story about it, I don't see white families treating their kids like that. I don't see white families infantilizing their kids like that. I see white families empowering their kids from an early age, that by the time they're 16 and still in school, they already have a car of their own. It might be a hand-me-down 1984 Cadillac from their parents or whatever, but at least they have some sense of independence. And by the time they're 18, they walk out of school straight into a job and they have a credit card and they're building their credit. And that is how they progress, and you wonder why you walk into a job and they end up being your boss and not one of us. Meanwhile, on our side of the tracks, what is happening to us? We are going back home even though we don't have to, but we do it out of obligation because they're family, So we go back home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it is, and we're having a little chit chat in the kitchen, and it turns into a conversation, and they're wrong and you're right, and as soon as you're getting a bit too right and they're correcting you, the right one, and you're standing your ground and sticking up for yourself, as soon as you start doing that, so now you're getting disrespectful in here. This is my house. I don't care how grown you think you are. This is my house. Or, so you think because you're grown now, you think you could have all kind of big chat with me now. Just stupid shit. Just like, some of these people were not mentally ready to have children of their own. They're not fit to be parents. Instead of empowering you with the confidence you need to go forth in the world as a fully functioning adult, they are putting you down for being right and or even chasing after your dreams or whatnot. They feel the need to tear you down, not build you up. Like, we are the only ones who do that. I don't see any other race on earth doing that. We're the only ones. And you wonder why we're lagging behind. When they start acting like that and start saying things like you're getting disrespectful, you're getting too big for your trousers, you think you're better than the rest of us, you never forget you come from us, never forget where you come from, we're your family regardless, no matter where you go or what you do in the world. I was gonna say just sit there and just not say anything and don't argue with them. But if you're quiet, they think that, especially if you're dealing with narcissists, if you're quiet, they think that it's an invitation for them to attack. So not arguing with them, you're not arguing with them because you're letting them win, but that's how they're going to perceive it. And they will not waste an opportunity. So it might not be a good idea to not argue with them in their presence. It is a good idea, however, to not argue with them by going and staying no contact. If you have those kind of folks around you and they held you back all your life, and they are not showing the slightest inkling of a willingness to change and get help and get their minds right and get better, then depart from them, have nothing to do with them. If you're fully grown, you're not under any obligation to be loyal to family, especially if all they do is abuse you when you go back home for the holidays. Many of them They feel that you're embarrassing them because your success shows up their failures, and they feel really defeated and down within themselves and downtrodden, and they're jealous of your gifts and talents and your perseverance, and this is their way of just tearing you down. And when in fact they should be trying to pull themselves up to your level, what they're instead doing is pulling you down to their level. If that's what they're doing, then you are not under any obligation to have anything to do with those kind of people. The offsprings are supposed to evolve past the stage of the parents. That is how the race and the species continues. It happens in every race throughout all of history. That's how we were able to make it this far. They're actually going against nature. They're actually corrupting nature. What they're doing is the corruption of nature, and it's a sin. That is how you know that people like that are unnatural, and you really have no obligation to keep being loyal to them if that's all they want to do is tear you down and abuse you. Now, with that said, it brings me to today's main topic, because it explains that kind of infantilizing talk that they do to put you down. It explains, well, actually, that was an explanation of the agenda for why the agenda behind why they do that, actually, in the first place. Right? I just drew comparisons between the way black parents treat their offsprings and the way white parents treat their offsprings. Your white classmate probably had a car when he was 16, even if it was his father's 1984 Cadillac, right? Yeah. Even if it was a hand-me-down, he had something. Why are they being empowered by the time they're 13, 14? And you're being infantilized when you're 19, 20, 21, 25, 30 with kids of your own? Why? And once again, I reiterate, you wonder why you walk into these jobs and they're your bosses and not the other way around. And then the same derelict bastards who are infantilizing you have the audacity to blame all white people. But they kind of have a point, because there is a system of white supremacy that actually helps to keep us down as a people, but they're not really helping to fight against that. They're actually helping white supremacy. But yet, they want to shake all blame and responsibility off themselves and project all of their dereliction and their wickedness onto white supremacy, onto all white people in general, including those who are not actively trying to oppress you, those who are not even racist. So you go out there thinking all white people are your enemies, when really and truly it's just the racist ones. Which is why I keep saying, don't let racism distract you from the real problem at hand, which is narcissism. If you're busy focused on race, you're gonna miss the narcissism mark, because that is the real problem. And they come in all size, shape, and colors, all age, race, and genders. I wish it were as easy as black and white. I really wish, but it's not though. Right? Someone's physical appearance can't determine whether or not someone's a narcissist. Only their character can do that. And their character is not going to be revealed at once. It takes time for character to be revealed, slowly and gradually over time. Only time will separate wheat from tares. Only time will reveal true character. It's not as black and white as you think. That's why people who are crying racist, racist, racist all day, every day, they And if you fall for that, you're actually distracting yourself from the real problem at hand as far as human sociology is concerned, and human psychology, and that is narcissism, NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, among other kind of dark triad personalities, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and all that, all the cluster B's, right? They want to turn around and blame all white people, all of them, when they're actually helping the system of white supremacy oppress you more than a non-racist white person is. What a pile of hypocrisy! And these are your parents. They're supposed to love you. They're supposed to be looking out for you, looking out for your best interest. Try to imagine the kind of world. Understand where I'm coming from before I get to my main point. Try to imagine a world where black teenage boys and girls who are like 13, 14, middle school age group. Try to imagine a world where they're empowered versus them being infantilized. Imagine how much differently our community would be. And if we start now in this current year, imagine how much differently the world will be 10, 20 years from now if we stay the course. How much differently the black community within the United States and even black majority nations around the world will be. If in fact we stay the course and start empowering our youth from an earlier age. So they can have confidence and go forth in the world knowing who they are, and no one can take them off their meds. Once they go out there knowing who they are and knowing what they stand for. Because if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. That is what infantilization does to you. Diminishes your self-esteem and your self-worth. That's why it is such a wicked thing to do to people. It is truly a wicked agenda. It is, and it is unnatural. It is unnatural. And anybody who's an agent of infantilization is just as unnatural. Even the very Bible said, literally, in the very first book in the Bible, the book of Genesis, that when a man come of age, he must leave his parents' home and go find a wife and build his own home. Infantilization is a process that works against that. And this is what they're upholding. And you wonder why we have so many incels in our society. You wonder why. Incels, involuntary celibates. You wonder why it is an epidemic of incels in America. Predominantly in the West. A problem that doesn't seem to exist in other countries around the world. It exists here. Why is a fucking 30-year-old man laying up in his mother's basement on a Saturday night playing video games and jacking off? Why? Ask yourself if that is even normal in the first place. Alright, now when I was 16 years old living in Jamaica, I wanted to lower the age of consent without even understanding the real implications of infantilization. I knew within my heart of hearts that it was something very dreadfully, terribly wrong with someone who's infantilizing a 16-year-old who's coming of age and who in another 2 years or so, he's pushing up on 18. There's something very wrong about that. He's pushing up on adulthood. You're pushing him back down to childhood. This is why that's unnatural. And I knew there was something very detrimentally wrong with that. And so I wished for the age of consent to be lowered. I called several talk shows. I had written the editor. I had written editorials in the Gleaner, putting forth my argument as to why I believe the age of consent should be lowered. But here's the mistake I made. I didn't do my research, because if I did my research, I would not confuse the age of consent with the age of majority. I have since done my research. It's been a lifetime since back in those days, so I feel as though I am now more versed to speak on the topic than I was back then. There was a time when I even abandoned the whole dream of lowering the age of majority, which is something good actually. It's good that I abandoned it, because abandoning it meant I get to do more research, gather more intel, to come back more well informed than I once was. And from my understanding, I am going to tell you the difference between the age of consent and the age of majority and what they both mean. Okay, the age of consent first. The age of consent is a threshold. A threshold by which one is allowed to give consent to have sex. The age of consent in many locations it's 17 or 18. In some locations it's 16. In some locations, in some countries around the world, is 9 and 12 and those ages. But just because the government gives permission to perform pedophilic acts doesn't mean that you have to accept. Legality does not govern morality. You have your own sense of morality. You don't have to accept the permission given to you by the government of any country on earth to have sex with a minor just because they actually give you permission. You don't have to do that. Let your own sense of morality that comes from within. No external laws that were written can ever govern your internal sense of morality. You rely on your inner gut feelings. Damn disgusting. What? And let me ask you a question. Why is amnesty not coming down on the leaders of those countries, forcing them to raise the age of consent to a more appropriate age, like 16, 17, 18. Not even 16 is too young. Like maybe 17, 18. Why is that? Force the government to come to raise the age of consent or force them out of office. They are international human rights lobbyists who are there for that explicit purpose. Why aren't there UN sanctions against the governments of countries who allow sex tourists to fly into their countries from wherever just to molest one of the citizens of their country who happens to be a minor? Why? But I'll get back to that in some, perhaps, I'll have to speak on that matter more in depth at a future date, because this is the reason why Miko Worldwide did what he did, and now all of SYSBM looks bad. All of SYSBM is being blamed for the actions of Miko Worldwide, who was not even SYSBM in the first place. When really and truly many of those countries, because they're looking for a scapegoat, many of those countries, they are the ones who dropped the age of consent down to 9 or 12. 9! 9 is a child! A baby! I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw it. A baby, a 9-year-old is a baby, has no business sexually entertaining a grown-ass rascal man. Anyway, I'm sorry. Back to my original point. The age of consent is not actually there to, well, first of all, it was there to protect minors from having sex with adults. Not with children their own age, but with adults. The age of consent only promises, the age of consent only the only purpose I think is even really there is to promise, and this definition was given to me, but was actually mentioned on air by Dr. Karen Carpenter on Nationwide 90 FM. Dr. Karen Carpenter, the host for Love and Sex. I heard her a few years ago, the definition of the age of consent. And she said that you will not be prosecuted if in fact you do not cross the threshold. The age of consent is only there to promise that you will not be prosecuted in a court of law if in fact one engages in sexual activity with someone on the same side of the age of consent, which is very close to what I heard Coach Red Pill say on his channel as well. The age of consent is there to ensure that members of people who are engaging in sexual activity, that they are that they will not be prosecuted if in fact they are engaging in coitus with members who are on the same side of the threshold of the age of consent. The age of, and with that said, my interpretation is that the age of consent is designed to to protect minors from engaging in sexual relations, not with children their own age, but rather with persons their own age who's also a minor, but with an adult, someone over the age of consent. So the long and short of it is, as long as adults 18 and over are fucking other adults 18 and over, and minors 18 and under are fucking other minors 18 and under, everybody good. Everybody is okay. Minors will not be prosecuted for having sex with each other. Only an adult will be prosecuted for having sex with a minor. And with that said, I do believe, and I heard this on a BBC special some 4 or 5 years ago, the age of consent was designed to protect girls. Primarily girls. Now, it should protect boys too, but that's not why it's being used. It's not being used to protect boys. It's being used to control and dominate boys, especially if you come from a black or Caribbean background and you're raised by these husky, muscular single mothers who they're amused at the thought that they can dominate men and boys. Just misandric fucking bitches, right? If that's your background, the age of consent, they're not doing it to protect you. You're being controlled. You're being dominated by women. Yeah. And usually the men are so nonchalant, even if they are around, because sometimes they're not always absent. Sometimes they really are around, but they just don't give a shit. They just don't give a shit. They're nonchalant. So these Caribbean nonchalant men who just don't really give a shit, and they let the women take charge and take over. By the time they're done humiliating and infantilizing that kid, by the time he comes of age, actually come of age and actually reach the age of majority, he is going to be functioning as an adolescent still, because of the way that he was treated. Not because of his own lack of maturity, but because of the way that he was treated. So understand something here. And this is how I'm going to segue now into separating the age of consent from the age of majority. The age of consent was designed to protect girls and control boys. It gives young girls a way out where if they're being pressured into having unwanted sex, they can simply say, I'm underage, and they'll be left alone. That is what I picked up from the BBC special from a few years ago. Yeah, it gives them really a way out to opt out of unwanted sexual pressure, and all they could say is an excuse, when really and truly, all they should say is no. No is all that matters. Anybody who asks you why you can't take no for an answer, they're trying to push your boundaries. You shouldn't even have to explain, oh, I'm underage. No. No means no. No means no. Accept that. But I can understand why historically the age of consent was used to protect the girls by giving them an excuse as to why they don't wish to be pressured into unwanted sexual contact. With a grown-up, with a man, with an adult, you know? So anyway, but boys don't have that problem though, but yet the age of consent still applies to them, and it should be applied to them for their protection. Instead, it's being applied to them to control them and keep them in check. Because after all, boys will be boys and they're very adventurous, and many people don't even like that. Many people don't like that boys are adventurous, so this is their way of controlling them, keeping them in check, keeping them home longer than they should be, infantilizing them for their own selfish reasons. The boy could be very ambitious and want to go out there in the world and burst onto the scenes and branch out on his own and do his own thing. But no, for their own selfish reasons, whoever his caregivers are, his guardians, they want to hold on to him and infantilize him for longer than he should be, for longer than is natural. And they think that shit's funny and cute, but it's not though, it's disgusting. And they themselves will get annoyed with him when they find out that they have to be responsible for a giant toddler. They themselves, they created that monster, and they are going to get annoyed with him for something that's not even his own fault, that they did. How sick is that? The age of consent was designed to protect girls and control boys, and by the age of consent, I do really mean the age of majority as far as boys are concerned. The age of majority. Right? Because as far as boys are concerned, there is no real age of consent. The age of consent is to protect anything that is related to GYN. Anything female related, anything virtuous. It is there to protect the virtues of a young lady. It is there to protect her reproductive functions. Right? There is no age of consent for boys. There's a double standard. If a 14-year-old boy is raped by a 30-year-old woman, and he complains about it, and he's crying and complaining, first of all, they will laugh him to scorn. That's the first thing. And then some might even pass some crude remark like, at least you got some pussy. You should have been enjoying that shit. Why, you gay or something? Why are you complaining? What, are you gay? Dude, that's free pussy. Enjoy that shit. You do have idiots who talk like that. Like, it irks me. It annoys me. If you have nothing good to say, shut up. And by the way, that is another product of a dumbed down, remedial, infantilized society. Someone who would say that. Someone who would say, dude, if I were you and I was 14 and some 30-year-old broad was giving me free pussy, bro, I would have fucked that bitch. I would have been glad. I would have took that shit. Right? That is another product of an infantilized society as well. Who the hell talks like that? In any normal progressive society, who talks like that? No, that boy was raped by an adult, but there's a double standard though. When it's a young girl with an older man, it's disgusting, it's pedophilia. When it's an older woman with a young boy, oh dude, you got some free pussy, yeah, who the man? You the man. It is a double standard, so age of consent does not apply to boys. No. When I say the age of consent, I'm saying it very loosely, but I really do mean the age of majority. The age of majority was meant to control boys. Let me rephrase that so you understand where I'm coming from. The age of consent was meant to protect girls, but the age of majority was meant to control boys. And with that said, I must now give the main difference between the age of consent and the age of majority. The age of consent is specifically as it relates to giving sexual consent of a sexual nature, whereas the age of majority is as it relates to your permission, not your capabilities, but you're receiving permission from the state to carry out acts of empowerment that would actually that grown-ups can do, but not minors, you know? Things like getting a driver's license, registering to vote, getting a job, getting married, entering a club, drinking alcohol, serving in the military, entering a nightclub, and all those grown-up type things. The age of majority covers your rights to do that. And because young boys are adventurous and really and in fact really do want to do those things, many of those things, that's why they use the age of majority as a tool to control them, so they can't do those things and they can be kept infantilized for longer. So they're easier to control. Because the powers that be, they don't want to give up control. They don't care. It doesn't matter how old they are. They could have literally 5 years left on the throne. They're going to try and cheat death and get 15 years and 20 years on the throne. More than they deserve. And it has been evident throughout all of history. Every single king I know in the Bible always was obsessed with murdering baby boys, and it's happening today. Maybe not a literal death of the body, but certainly a death of the soul, when a young boy is going against nature, or being forced against nature rather, by being infantilized with an age of majority that's weaponized against him to control him. Every single dictator throughout history and in the Bible was obsessed with murdering baby boys. From the Pharaoh who wanted to kill the baby boys in Egypt, the Israelite baby boys, the Hebrew Israelite baby boys in Egypt, the Pharaoh was obsessed with killing them during the times of Moses, but Moses survived. And then we fast forward to King Herod, who reigned during the times of the birth of Christ. And once again, there was a target on the backs of baby boys. Why? Because boys are strong and we grow up to be leaders. And the powers that be, whether on the macro level, i.e. your president, your media, your banks and corporations, don't want to give up their throne, don't want to be overthrown. Your kings and governors. And then on the macro level, your auntie, your grandma, your mother, and all those infantilizing forces within your very family. They're doing their part too. That's why at the beginning of this podcast, I actually said that they are aiding and assisting white supremacy to oppress you, yet turn around and blame all white people. Even the ones who are not racist are being blamed. But they're helping white supremacy, though. It makes no sense, but they're covering their tracks. That's why they're doing it. And despite all the examples throughout history, throughout recorded history, and despite the fact that history is threatening to or actually repeating itself, they don't give a shit. They're still doing it. Once again, there is a bounty on the heads of of boys. Once again, it doesn't even have to be a black boy, but of course we are more likely to be targeted though than other races. You know, once again, there is a bounty on the heads of boys, especially black boys, and it may not be a literal death of the physical body, but it's a death of something, and in this case, a death of your soul. By you going against the nature of acquiring the age of majority, stepping into your rites of passage as a man. They're going against that nature by pushing you back down into childhood, shrinking you down to so-called size, where they can feel comfortable being around you. clipping your wings as opposed to letting you sprout your wings and fly like a bird and branch off and do your own thing. No, they don't want to lose you, but at the same time, they also don't want to have you around if they're going to feel threatened. So they want to keep you in a docile, submissive, obedient, subservient position for which they are not feeling your strength and your power as a man, so they can feel comfortable, while they selfishly hold on to you for their own benefit. And the man of tomorrow here on YouTube, he talks about that all the time. This is exactly what he talks about. This is the pinnacle of Man of Tomorrow's channel. Shout out to the Man of Tomorrow for helping to spread awareness of this epidemic. It is a problem. It is really sickening. So the age of consent is uniquely as it relates to being able to consent to sexual contact and particularly as it relates to keeping the minors and the majors on their respective sides of the threshold, and to ensure that no one crosses the threshold. Meanwhile, the age of majority is as it relates to having the rights and permission to carry out more adult functions. Whether or not you're capable, it doesn't matter. It's whether or not permission was granted. It's whether or not you have the right. And it has been used as a weapon to control boys, because girls have to abide by the age of majority as well. They can't get a driver's license or drink beer until they're 18 or 21 also. But the thing about girls is that they will always be protected. If not by a boyfriend, then certainly by their parents or some other family member. So they don't have to rely on the age of majority for them to go gather resources. Many of the things that one needs to acquire the age of consent in order to do is as it relates to gathering resources. For example, going out and getting a job or applying for a loan or a credit card. Many of those things is as it relates to gathering resources. And here you have a 16-year-old pushing upon the age of majority in less than 2 years. And he's told he can't get a job or a loan, a business startup loan or something like that because he's too young. Because he's too young. When the very Bible said, as a man is coming of age, he should leave his parents' house and go seek to build his own shelter and find a wife. Build his own shelter and gather his own resources to house his family when he actually has one. Right? So if the Bible says that, then the age of majority must therefore be against nature, against the very nature that the Bible preaches. Girls have to adhere to the age of majority as well, but they are not as affected by it It doesn't have as much of a profound effect on them as it would on boys because they are being provided for and looked after regardless. Boys don't have that luxury. We are the hunters. Boys and men are hunters. We don't have that luxury. A female will always be provided for, no matter what. If not her boyfriend, then certainly one of her family members or somebody, or the village will come together and make sure she doesn't end up on the street homeless. A boy doesn't have that luxury. If he fucks up, it's over for him. It's over. Right? He will be fucked. No one give a fuck about him. He'd end up on the street, mad and walking and laughing at random people and searching for food in rubbish bins. So he has the extra responsibility of making sure he can provide, but how the hell can you do that when the system seeks to infantilize him for their own benefit, seeks to kill him on some level or another? Tell him that he can't go out and gather resources as he is brushing near the age of majority, but yet doesn't give a damn if he is unable to provide and therefore subsequently go homeless as a result, or lose his car or whatever it is as a result. Huh? What kind of foolishness is that? The system is broken and it has to change. Why not? As I suggested previously in one of my previous podcasts, the one titled Teach the Youths. As I suggested in Teach the Youths, why not give the youth provisional, limited adult rights as a minor, to train them, to boost their confidence and train them in preparation for actually acquiring the real age of majority. By the time they're brushing 15 or so, why not start to gradually give them limited powers of majority bit by bit until they actually turn 18 for real, especially when you consider that the age of majority ought not be respected because it is shrouded in hypocrisy. How is it that you are not old enough to drink, but you're old enough to join the military, to be airlifted halfway around the world in some sandbox somewhere in the Middle East, to potentially get killed or maimed, but yet when it comes to drinking a beer, you're a baby, you're too young? What the fuck? It's hypocrisy. And the moment you're going to start being a hypocrite around me, then I no longer have any respect for you. I don't care what kind of law it is or what kind of authority you think you are. I will not respect you. Fuck you. How is it that you're too young to drink, but not too young to serve in the military and put yourself at risk of being killed or seriously hurt? How is it that you're a big tough guy when it's time to serve in the military, but yet you cannot drink not even a single drop of beer? That won't even make you drunk. A little 12-ounce can of Budweiser. Even someone who is truly not capable of holding their liquor can knock one of those down like it was water. That's how weak it is. 12-ounce can of beer, and you mean to tell me that he has to be 21 to drink one of those because Apparently he's so-called still a baby, still a child, but yet he's big, tough, macho man when it comes time to serving in the military. So now you know what I mean when I say the age of consent was meant to protect girls, but the age of majority was meant to control boys. Because there's a double standard, because all the age of majority does is that it serves the purpose of granting the young man adult responsibilities without adult rights. So the opposite of infantilization is parentification, where you give the older sibling more adult responsibilities than what they deserve or than what they're capable of. Right? Which is wrong, and that's also abuse as well. It is abuse. But sometimes both can be implemented at different times. Sometimes you could infantilize someone to tear down their self-esteem, yet parentify them when it's time for them to serve. The age of consent is a double-edged sword. I take it back. Not the age of consent. The age of majority. The age of majority is a double-edged sword. It's hypocrisy. The whole concept of it is shrouded in hypocrisy. The age of consent is so brutally oppressive that one who is subjected to it is being infantilized yet parentified at the same time, where he's being given adult responsibilities but not adult rights. Doesn't that sound like it's slavery to you? Because that's what it sounds like to me. It's slavery. The age of majority serves to enslave young boys without actually murdering them, like what King Herod did in the Bible. Society has never liked boys and men. Society has historically been misandric, and it is well documented. It has been well documented. There's no question about it. They don't like you, young man. They don't like you. I'm sorry, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. They don't like you, and it's not even your fault. It's their fault. They're sick. They have a problem. And that's even society as a whole. As a freaking whole. Now I have a solution for the problem. Seeing as how we have been able to get to the meat of the matter, I have a solution for the issue of the age of majority. And how to make it more fair and equal. And also for the age of consent as well. As far as the age of consent is concerned, I recommend raising the age of consent to 18 all across the board. And it's going to require a UN effort. It's going to require UN sanctions internationally to pressure governments around the world to raise the age of consent so it can be 18 all across the board, and I dare even say 20. Raise it even above 18. Yeah, I said it. Raise the age of consent to 20. So that everybody 20 and over can stay on their side and fuck whoever they want without the fear of prosecution, and everybody younger than 20 can stay on their side and fuck whoever they want without the fear of prosecution. Raise the age of consent to 20. Yes, I said it. You heard me right. Raise the age of consent to 20. A 20-year-old is a grown woman. She can give consent. 18 is still kind of young, so, I don't feel comfortable even though she's grown and they're telling us that 18 is grown. I still don't feel comfortable, it's still too young. But 20 is right on the money. 20 is right on the money, ripe for the picking. Right? So raise the age of consent from 18 to 20, and it has to be all across the board internationally. Because in many of the countries where it's like really, really low, like 9, 10, 12, and all those preposterous ages, you wonder why those girls go missing, because you open up your borders for sex tourists and pedophiles to come into your countries, idiots, and rape the minors in your country, rape the little girls, and oftentimes they go overboard and they murder them and dispose of their remains, and it's laws like that for which the age of consent is lowered that actually puts these girls at a higher risk and make them vulnerable. So it has to be a group effort on the part of the UN to internationally launch sanctions to pressure governments to raise the age of consent to 20 all across the board. Now, with that said, the age of majority. The age of majority, as it does not pertain to sexual consent, should be lowered to 15. The age of consent raised, the age of majority lowered. To 15. And as I suggested in my previous podcast, teach the youths. I suggested, for which, by the way, a link will be in the description below. In Teach the Youths, I basically said that at 15, the youths should basically, as part of their graduation curriculum, or as part of a prerequisite for their graduation, they should be granted limited powers of majority, for which they can go out and open bank accounts and take a driver education course and actually go and do an internship at a job at at corporations. They can go and do internships at corporations, and particularly as it relates to offices. It's a mandatory internship period to expose them to the real world of work as a prerequisite that would qualify them to graduate. They cannot graduate unless they complete, say, roughly 500 hours of internship. So between 15 and 18, they're doing their internship, and by the time they actually reach the age of majority, they have been empowered and emboldened with confidence. The infantilization mental programming has been reversed, and they have been trained to function as productive members of society. How is it that we are the greatest nation on earth, so called, but yet we're not doing this, and as a result of us not doing this, the kids are leaving school dunce as fuck and infantilized and dysfunctional and crazy? Why? Yet there are other countries in the world who actually do those things, as I suggested. Empower the youth from a very early age, especially as they're pushing up on the age of majority, so that when they do cross that threshold, they hit the ground running. There are countries who do that, but yet we don't even know who they are. We never heard of them. But yet somehow we want to steal the spotlight as being the world's greatest nation? What a pile of hypocrisy. We are not the world's greatest nation until we start doing that. And I do believe that the school lockdown for the coronavirus is an opportunity to think about revamping how we do education in this country. It is time to consider an education reform. That's what they should be doing, instead of talking about reopening schools prematurely while the virus is still out there. Opening schools prematurely. You should be talking about education reform. How to improve the education experience in American schools. That's what you should be talking about. You should be using the opportunity of school closure now that you have so much time on your hands to actually write proposals on how to fix the system, how to improve the system, so it can be fair and just for all. I do believe a 15-year-old is capable of responsibly handling the powers of majority, but seeing as how it's quite the leap, it's quite the jump from 18 back to 15. It's quite the jump, and it's an overnight. It can't be an overnight thing. It has to be a gradual process to get people used to the idea. So I recommend the powers of majority being slowly introduced to the youth on a provisional basis, where he has limited powers of majority, as he approaches 18. A 3-year gray area between 15 and 18, where he's being slowly introduced to flexing his powers of majority. That's what I recommend. So that by the time he's 18 and he's actually an adult and he's actually acquired the real age of majority, the infantilization mental programming psychological operation would have been reversed, and he can hit the ground running as a fully functional adult in society, for which he can be a more productive member of society. And if that is done collectively, then all of us look good. And it helps to boost the image of the nation as a whole. You ever thought about that? No, Trump. You don't think about yourself. And your ego. Fuck you. I hope Biden wins in November. As senile as Biden is, I hope Biden wins in November. So, that is my suggestion. Raise the age of consent to 20 to protect the virtues of young ladies for longer, to prevent abuse and molestation of young ladies and unwanted teenage pregnancies, for which the children who were born as a result of those unwanted teenage pregnancies will then become a burden on the state. Raising the age of consent, no, I'm kidding myself. What about boys our own age? I'm sorry. I'm bugging out. What about boys our own age? There will still be teenage pregnancies. Well, regardless of all that, still raise the age of consent nonetheless. To reduce the likelihood of molestation of young girls by older men. Raise the age to 20. But lower the age of consent from 18 to 15, where the 3-year period from 15 to 18 is a gray area where the powers of majority is being slowly introduced to the youth as part of reversing the brainwashing and the psyop of infantilization, that he may be a more productive member of society, that when he does actually acquire the age of majority, he can hit the ground running. And we could start gradually. For right now, we could start there for now, in the present, and then take it from there and see where it goes. And maybe at some point in the future, 15-year-olds would have been groomed to be so responsible that we can trust them with actual full powers of majority. But we will see where it goes. There's no hurry. We'll take it one day at a time. Alright? Okay, I think I've gone on long enough here. This has been quite the rant. Now, with that said, I have a couple of announcements to make. Announcement number 1. Frank and Upfront is going through a transitional phase where I am transitioning from one channel to another. There is now a new Frank and Upfront channel. It's the same name, the same exact name, but with a golden microphone instead as the avatar. The avatar has a golden microphone versus a black microphone. So we're going through a transitional phase. I am transplanting all of my previous videos over to that channel, and in about another couple of months or so, this original channel will no longer exist. So I invite you to actually subscribe to that channel instead. But it's going to be a gradual transitional phase. I'm still going to post on this channel for like another month or so, until maybe the end of September. And then this channel will be completely defunct, and it will only be the secondary channel that will exist on YouTube, at least. Right? So please check it out. I do invite you. Subscribe to that other channel. New content is gonna be coming up, as well as the original, as well as previously posted content. Right? And then, with that said, housekeeping item number 2. I will be going off on a 2-week hiatus. I won't be on YouTube for a while. I'm going to be going on a hiatus, a well-deserved hiatus, period of hiatus. And I'll be back towards the end of August. When I come back, I'll still be posting on this channel, but I'll be uploading to both channels until the end of September, and then I will only be uploading to the new channel. Alright, and there's a reason why I had to change channels. I'm working on a couple of new developments. There's going to be lots of changes coming up very soon, and I'm very excited, but it's a surprise though, so I won't say too much. So yeah, definitely stay tuned. There's definitely more to come. But for the next 2 weeks, I'll be going off on a period of well-deserved break and rest and hiatus. You know, so thank you all very much for your support. Thank you for supporting the channel, all of you, my day ones. Yeah. Well, I guess that's all I have to say then. Thank you for supporting the channel, and I will be back soon. I am Mr. Franklin. This has been Franklin Upfront. Thank you very much. Have a good night, good day, good afternoon, whatever time it is that you catch this podcast. And you will hear from me soon. Bye for now.